Oh, yeah. So we are going to start this gathering, and I would like to send my greetings to everyone. And okay, we'll start the session as we always do. That is, setting the right motivation, not only for the session, but also during the day, coming weeks, months, and years. How we are going to spend our lives, how we are going to interact with the other living beings. That is here setting the right motivation, a positive, a constructive motivation is something very, very crucial. And I think we know from our own experiences how useful and helpful if we engage in event or start the day with the positive thought, positive motivation. Also, many of us have read many texts and have listened many times from those great teachers on this subject. So therefore, and also here it is important that when we talk about setting right motivation, right intention, how we're going to spend the day, how we're going to spend the event, the basic, the foundation is what His Holiness the Dalai Lama says very often. That is, the basic human quality or qualities. That is good heart. Good heart in the sense minimum, intentionally, deliberately, not causing harm to others. Others here include all living beings. Very intentional, very deliberately, refraining from the causing directly or indirectly, right here and now, or sometime in the long term. That is the foundation, regardless of what what kind of religion that we follow, what kind of profound philosophy that we hold. But that is the base, that is the foundation. On that base, then we can develop some of other basic human qualities, such as ability to acknowledge the well-beings of others, ability to share sorrow, sadness difficulties that others enjoy. Ability to to love others regardless of our current connection. And these are what His Holiness Dalai Lama says, basic human qualities. And we all have that capacity, that ability, the seeds. And we should nurture, we should enhance them, either with the secular reasons, understanding, and so forth, or different religious beliefs, faiths, philosophies. So that foundation should not be neglected, should not be forgotten, should not be ignored. Then neglect or not ignore that foundation, that base, that basic naturally there within us, ignored or what you call that not pay attention. If we try to pay attention some kind of on above that, like through the religious belief, through the philosophical what you call the explanation, then we will struggle to really to grow those what you call the those good qualities that promoted by the different religious traditions. That's what His Holiness Dalai Lama says. He learned what he sometimes calls 4 commitments. That first commitment is to promote basic sometimes we look at more in the what you call the up there, not and then neglecting, not paying attention what is there at the fundamental level, at the natural level. So that is something when we talk about the setting right motivation, positive motivation. Of course, that can be set according to particular religious, faith that we were going to do, such as refuge and bodhicitta. But holding the refuge mind, holding the bodhicitta mind, the altruistic awakened mind, these amazing mental qualities will grow when we acknowledge, when we realize, when we promote that naturally existent human qualities. So that is something very, very important. In one of the sutras that I've been reading, it used a nice analogy. The analogy is, if the pot is broke, there's no bottom at that pot, then no matter whatever what we pour in that pot, nothing to be kept, nothing to be saved in that pot. And it is, certain extents, it is like that. If we neglect, if we not promote some of those basic human nature, positive nature, those human positive qualities, then if we try to bring lots of religious and philosophical, the things, then difficult to grow. So important. As His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, we shouldn't forget ourselves as just a human being, not as a Tibetan first, not as a monk, not as a this and that. Those are the secondary. Not saying these are not important, those are the secondary. What is it? The first is as a human being. Then that is something I think I have shared this with you before, and I feel that very, very important. So with that, then our setting right motivation is according to the teachings of the Buddha, taking refuge, holding the mind, going for refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, seeing, thinking, feeling from our heart the Buddha as a teacher, mentor, the Dharma, the teachings as a means and methods, the actual medicines to cure, to eliminate hatred, attachment, and ignorance, which are the root of all our difficulties that we experience in our lives. And the Sangha, not necessarily the monks and nuns, Sangha members, loosely speaking, those people who live, at least try very hard to live their lives as close as possible according to the teachings of the Buddha. Loosely speaking, the Sangha. So seeing them, treating them as one's own spiritual friends, role model, something to look up. And they're going for refuge in three jewels in that way. And not only when we face challenges, when we face difficulties, but also regardless of ups and downs in our lives, in our lives, whatever, 60, 70, 80, 90 years at time, there are ups, there are downs, and also, what to call that, sometimes very neutral in the sense, not very much happening emotionally and like that. Regardless of that kind of fluctuation, but seeing, thinking, the three jewels are my refuge to deal with these three poisons. Many of what we see as challenges, what we see as difficulties, many of them can be reduced, can be minimized, or certain extent can be eradicated due to the using the external things and events, including money and other things. But to really cure these three poisons, to really minimize and eventually to get rid of three poisons, then we need dharma, and we need Buddha to teach us and to support us.
Sorry, Geshe, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
In the world of samsara.
Oh.
And therefore, really, develop or cultivate as altruism, wanting to serve, wanting to help, wanting to give support to others. So if we start the day, if we start the particular event like this kind of gathering, with that kind of motivation, with that kind of sense of mind, then the day, the week, the month, the year will be very, very meaningful. Will be very, very fruitful. Our activities of the body, speech and mind will be very, very constructive. So important. With that, brave to encouragement to set the right motivation. Now we will say the refuge and bodhicitta lines. Sanje chödang tsoje chonam chanjo pato dani tso che dage che so jive tsonam ji dola penje sanje dobara sho. Sanje chödang tsoje chonam chanjo pato dani tso che dage che so jive tsonam ji dola penje sanje dobara sho. Sanje chödang tsoje chonam chanjo pato dani tso che dage che so jive tsonam dola penje sanje dobara sho. With the mind taking refuge in three jewels and the altruistic awakened mind as our main motivation. Now we'll say Charasic mantra. As you know, the Charasic Avalokiteshvara is the embodiment of all the enlightened beings' great compassion. All the enlightened beings' great compassion manifest or appears into form of Avalokiteshvara or Chenresi. So while we are saying the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, verbally say the mantra. I think all of us know that mantra. Mentally, bring a very strong sense of great compassion towards all living creatures. That includes oneself, one's own loved ones, one's own family members, and nobody is excluded. That you are expressing your strong, great compassion. And cultivation of that kind of strong sense of compassion. When we say compassion, strong sense of compassion, that doesn't mean that looking down or pity looking, saying, not in that way. Saying that all living beings are really very, very what's called important for their own right from our own side. Very, very important. As in the mind training texts said, see the living beings are as precious as those worldly, what we think as something valuable, precious. So kinds of or levels of dukkha, suffering that they go through, that they enjoy. To create the causes and conditions that living beings be free from dukkha, suffering. Have that kind of strong, mind, and that is here the meaning of compassion. Om Mani Om So I'm going to touch on once again the sutra that we read last Sunday, enlightenment. And in that sutra, Buddha asked 3 questions. And out of 3 questions, the second question what is the danger in it? And in it refers to the world. And in the next paragraph, when he extends, when he answers those three questions, relation to the second question, then his answer was that the world is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. So I want to talk a little bit on that again, because that is really some of the fundamental the teachings that Buddha had given to his followers to really saying be aware of, to understand the nature of impermanence, nature of dukkha, nature of subject to change, the world that we live internally and externally. And we had this discussion last week. And today, because, the English, Queen passed away. And in that, it is very, very, very explicit, collective, what you call understanding the nature of impermanence, nature of subject to change. Sometimes, for example, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and also I think it is saying in the Theravadan Buddhist tradition too, but in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, when some of those high Rinpoches, lamas, passed away, and in the writing, when the announce a passing away, such a great teacher, quite often in the announcement, there is this statement. The statement is this in Tibetan first. Dulja. Dulja refers to dulcha. That means those, followers, those students, if we use dulja. Tangzin jen. Takpa is permanent. Tangzin, zimba means grasping. So jennam, so those followers or those students who have a strong grasping of permanent of things and events. Chela kulwe chitu. So chela means to take these followers who have a strong grasping of permanence of the things and events. These followers to lead into dharma. For that purpose, the teacher passed away. So that is quite a nice statement. I've been following relatively close to this event because I want to know the public, the expression and all those things. And it is, certain extent, she performed appointing the new prime minister, and the next day or day after, she passed away. Such a though she was, she was old, 96 years old lady, but yesterday or day before yesterday, in the public, in that country, yes, she was holding her walking stick, but still smiling and performing that function, that is important, her duty. But then next thing, the public, what we have heard, she was not well. Then a few hours later, we heard she passed away. So that is, clear indication of nature of impermanence. But that is what I have pointed out, some kind of sequence. But that is very, very gross indication of nature of impermanence. Not subtle. Buddha had, said many times to his followers, be aware of nature of impermanence. Why? That understanding really, from not intellectually, not theoretically, but from the heart level, from the experiential level, when we understand the nature of impermanence, everything is subject to change. Then our, how we relate to the other living beings and the outside world will be very, very different. Will be very, very different. Different in the positive way. Positive. Very often, when we have heard, when people who seriously face life-threatening illness, and when the illness is cured, very often people say, that really gives that serious life-threatening illness, gives me very different perspective of my life and how I live my life. It has changed. Very often people say that. So that is really very, very important teaching. Very, very important teaching. Understanding, showing that kind of nature of impermanence in the public. Millions of people have seen that, have experienced that. And it is that kind of, activities, what is happening, though happening outside that, but that should be, reflect on our own nature of life. That will make huge difference. One of the sutras that I'm reading these days, this is in Tibetan, not in English. Is all talking about, the worldly things and events, though they may give temporary satisfaction, temporary fulfillment, temporary our needs, but they don't have, potential or the capacity, as we discussed last week, capacity to give us really, to cure those three poisons. And there are a few examples given in this sutra. Pua. Pua is the, water bubble, or water bubble, when the water, moves and creates lots of bubbles. And these bubbles, there's nothing within those bubbles. It's completely empty. Essence. There's no essence in those bubbles. It's completely, when it's burst, there's nothing. So the things and events that we encounter, that we have a yearning, have a desire to have more, and so on and so forth. 99%, they don't have that much essence, in the sense to give us long-term, the fulfillment. Of course, they may give temporary satisfaction, joy. As a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, of course we need, our necessities, no doubt. Food, shelter, medicine, friendships, and all those. No doubt we need those things. But many of us, I'm not saying sometimes when I say those things, I'm a single man. Don't have families, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. No, I don't have that. Maybe sometimes my, those expression might be too strong. People who have children, people who have grandchildren to look after, I think, who's going to look after my children, my grandchildren? You have to, what I'm saying is, from the point of view of seeking liberation from attachment, aversion, and ignorance, seeking liberation from those three poisons, then we need to think about, seriously think about what are the necessities to ourselves, to our loved ones, to our extended families, and so on and so forth. What are the exaggerated, what are the, if I use the term, extravagant. And extravagant, exaggeration can be relative, isn't it? For one person's extravagant may not be other person's extravagant. So, but just use those words, then you can make the judgment. What are the extravagance, where you can draw the line? As I all the time saying to you, many times, I've already said many times now. Now I will say what I have collected in here last 4 years. I have a huge, cupboard in this room, where currently where I'm living. That this is the Sera Mey abbot's room. There are two rooms, and this is my bedroom. And in my bedroom, there's long cupboard and lots of cupboards. Initially, I thought, what I'm going to fill in those cupboards when I moved here in 2018. Now I'm thinking, searching extra cupboards. So that is, this attachment, grasping, or like that. So what he says, color, There's no essence in those water bubbles. Longer takpa kalayu. Longer, or what you call that, possessions or possessions. Takpa, that means permanent. Those possessions are not permanent. They are impermanent. Even if they stay whole our life, but one day we have to separate from them. Like current, English Queen, when she passed away, the day before yesterday, when she passed away, she left all her castles, all her palaces, and including those beautiful dogs. I don't know how to pronounce the type of dog's name, and those horses. It seems there are so many beautiful animals there. Happily, including our body. And it is same for us. Same for us. We are not excluded. So, Longje Takwa Kale. Longje Tani Babchushin. Those possessions, that we have collected over the months, years, and decades. They are like waterfalls. Just collected and passed. When we are collecting them, when we are accumulating them, extremely hard. You need to spend hours, days, weeks, months to make that happen, to have it. But, getting lost is within a few seconds, all is lost. Longjetani, Bachushin. Trushin Tawe Kim Deda. This body is like a boat to carry. Two is the boat, ship. This body is nothing. When you have a boat to cross from one shore to other shore, when you cross, you need to leave the boat on the water. You can't carry it. So this body and all what we hear, just one lifetime, that will take us to the end of this life, then that's it. So those, I remember in the UK, there are many, particularly in the winter and also early spring, there are types of flowers, just stays, few hours in the morning. Then if you visit noon, then it's gone. It's already that freshness, that kind of very beautiful freshness is already gone. After a few hours, there are some kind of flowers. So, those are the beautiful, the analogies or examples given by Buddha in the sutra, talking about nature of impermanence. Buddha, as I mentioned earlier, when we read some of these sutras majority of these, the sutras which common to the Theravadan and the Mahayana sutras. Majority of these sutras are given or taught to the monks and the nuns. So very often he touch on this subject, nature of impermanence, using these beautiful, giving those beautiful examples. So that is something useful, to use, to seize the opportunity individually and collectively, seeing the nature of permanence, seeing the nature of subject to change. Nothing is static, constantly changing nature. So that is, very what is what is happening, to the current in the UK. Talk on that subject and to really, yes, people like to participate in different ways, but also, seize the opportunity to understand the teachings that Buddha had given on this issue, on this subject, on this matter, which is, I find, very helpful. Another, again, to current situation, maybe some people may not like it, but I've already made a decision in my head, so I'm going to talk on that. So another point, what I've noticed is, the nature of dependency. Nature of dependency. Nothing is existed from its own side or in and of itself. And this I want to talk in relation to yesterday and today. Today, I can't remember. Anyway, that Prince Charles is labeled, Charles III. Now, to make that solid, that label, the king's the child, and people to believe, people to accept, and to function that is entirely dependent on all these factors, not in and of itself. Not, Charles III does not exist in and of itself. Existence of Charles III is 100% dependent on all these different factors. Though Charles III is solid, walking, driving, and performing function, all those things. But how it's come into being. And now, real existence, Charles III, true existence, is very much, not from its own side, but, which are, this during the day I look at several times. I look at watch the television or on the computer online. This proclamation, going through the different towns, and that is really making solidifying our belief and making to our mind, to say this is now. That is a sign does not exist from its own side. So that is dependently arising, dependently existent, not independently, not on and off its own right, on side. So this, and in that, those are the two examples, what is happening in the UK. And from those two examples that we can, learn, really profound teachings that Buddha had given again and again and again. Nature of impermanence and nature of dependently arising, dependently existing. And in a certain extent, in a short moment, within a few days, everything happens. Isn't it? So that is here useful. If we don't understand that nature, then what Buddha is saying, what is the danger in it? Not understanding that kind of nature of impermanence, nature of dependently arising, then danger in the sense, we experience lots of, at least in the mental level, confusion and all sorts of things. Of course, emotionally, particularly like the close family members, cannot be avoided because emotional connections. That is difficult. I know from my own experiences, and many of you know from your own experiences. When we lost close family member, relative, emotionally, these philosophical thinking, nature of impermanence, nature of dependence, will not help us immediately, but it will help us. This understanding will help us from the depth of our mental level. Then we will say, yes, that is nature. That is nature of the world. That is how things and events existed. So then the surface emotional grief or whatever will not go down to the deep depth of our mental state. In our depth of our mental state, there will be a tremendous sense of calmness. People have those realizations, realization of nature of impermanence, realization of nature of subject to change. Then these, naturally occurring phenomena will not disturb us, will not cause us, deep sorrow. Of course, surfacely, no doubt. So that is something I thought is important to share, to talk a little bit on this subject. And then, of course, another thing is here, when I listen some of those, interviews, there is a very commonly acceptance, commonly felt. She had done her duty as a queen very well. people may have politically different views. That's a different. I don't want to talk, I don't know those things. But there is a collectively acceptance. She served to the community and, live her life really to serve with the community. And that is amazing. So, acknowledging there are people who really serve years, decades to the community or to the wider, which is something the very, very admirable. One channel they interviewed to somebody who worked with her as a secretary, and that lady that who used to work as a secretary, she said, she got these government papers to be read and that is those what they call the red boxes. Those goes everywhere which palaces she was living. And it's something, really, commitment. So here what I'm talking about is our life. We all have capacity to serve others. Not necessarily huge number of beings, not necessarily in a similar fashion, but we all have the capacity and the ability and the what you call the facilities to serve others. Might be a very small number, maybe in terms of the number might be very small, just one's own loved ones, just one's own family members, or colleagues, or friends, or neighbors, also not necessarily only humans, but also other living beings. So, to serving, to supporting others is something as I started today's, our gathering, very much, in a certain extent, as a basic human nature. We may serve in different ways, different capacities, in different passions, but here what we need is, from the Buddhist point of view, less what you call equal, less self-interest, more that other that we are serving. Might be just one person, maybe two people, maybe a little bit more, or not necessarily every day, but whenever occasion is there to serve others, to really seize the opportunity and serve with the right mind. If it is possible, purely for the sake of that being whom that we are serving, not me to be satisfied, not me to feel very great, not in that way, but it's purely to serve. Even if that might be very, very short period, small things, number is very small, that is fine. As many of you have heard, have read from Shantideva's guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. He clearly stated, training is from the small things. If you are not ready to give something that you going to give, then if you are not mentally not ready, don't give it. And those are the really something very, very, the what you call the important advice. How to train our mind, how to train ourselves to serve others. Because we have a tendency, when we do something, we want to do, say the positive, we want to do huge number, huge things. That is sign of having learned how to train ourselves, to serve others. It is gradual, bit by bit, stage by stage, not in all in once. That's not going to work. His Holiness Dalai Lama says one time, if we have that kind of attitude, that kind of mental state, we want to do something very big, very huge, right at the beginning, that is the sign of failure. That's what His Holiness said. Now, one time when I was with him. So those are the something very, very important, message that we learn from what is happening at the Khen in the UK relation to the passing away of the Queen. So 3 things what I've shared with you today. Really, the sutra that we read last Saturday, Buddha's answer to what is the danger in the world, that is impermanence, suffering, and subject to change. Danger in the sense not knowing, not understanding those 3 nature of the things, events that we have surrounding with us, then that will cause us pain, suffering, difficulties. In that sense, it is danger. Danger in that sense. Without not knowing that kind of nature will cause us huge, individually and collectively, huge pain, suffering. And this is what I've shared with you in relation to the current event, what is happening in the UK. So now we're remaining about a little bit short than half an hour. I would like to start another sutra, which Trey and Peter kindly sent you today. And there are 2 short sutras, again in the same collection of that book. Today's our first reading will be that Sutra 128. The title is called Pollution. 128 and pollution. So here, that one, yeah. The next one. Maybe I lost. Oh no, not that one. the other one, 143. I want to read that one today. 143. The title is The Peacock Sanctuary. The Peacock Sanctuary. So I want to read that sutra. So this is another beautiful short sutra. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir at Wanderer's Path, the Peacock Sanctuary. People who have been to that part of the world in India, like a Rajgir. Rajgir is not very far from Bodh Gaya, where Buddha attained enlightenment. And this place, Rajgir, historical Buddha, had spent quite a long time to give teachings. It seems at that time that area is, and those several kingdoms in that area was very, very successful financially and in many different ways. So it seems there were many, great teachers were sort of traveling in those areas, including the Buddha. And in that place, still we can see they're called peacocks, the sanctuary. There are still some peoples. I think it is just simply to attract tourists. I'm not sure. Anyway, but it is quite interesting in that sense. Now, changes. My last visit was, I remember some time ago, and there isn't any attraction in that area. Very, very dusty, very, that area. So at that place, also that place is not very far from, where many of the Mahayana Sutras, many of the Panchaparamita Sutras, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, where Buddha taught. Near this place, there's a mountain or hill called Vulture's Peak, not very far from this. There, Buddha taught, including the Heart Sutra. So here, Buddha said, the peacock sanctuary. There, the Blessed One addressed the bhikshus. Bhikshus possessing the three qualities. A bhikkhu is best among the devas and the humans. I think devas is the Sanskrit term. It is gods. Gods, not that Christian and Judaism's concept of God. It is gods which a particular samsaric realms from the Buddhist point of view. So that is devas and humans. One who has reached the ultimate conclusion, won ultimate security from the bondage, lived the ultimate spiritual life, and gained the ultimate consummation. So here it is quite interesting. The sutra started with the result of what are those three qualities. Results are mentioned earlier. Among the best of human devas and humans, those beings who have those three qualities, which we are going to look at, those three qualities. Buddha said those are the best among the humans. Best in the sense, as I mentioned earlier, last week. Again, I quote one beautiful verse from a sutra with the beautiful analogies, saying that those honeybees, extract honey from the flowers without destroying the colors and the smell of the flowers. So humans who are able to live their life in this world, in that fashion, though enjoy living in this world, and enjoy the, those five sense, objects, shapes, colors, smell, taste, tactiles, and so forth. But at the same time, not causing any pain, any difficulties to the living beings and their environments. So best in that sense, bhikshu. A bhikshu is the among diverse in humans, one who has reached the ultimate conclusion. So ultimate conclusion here refers to, sometimes we use the term, liberation or nirvana. That is the ultimate conclusion. When we, our spiritual journey and, that kind of liberation or the nirvana or, liberation in the sense that those three poisons are completely eradicated from us, liberated us, ourselves liberated from those three poisons. Our actions of our body, speech, and mind are not, led by those three poisons directly or indirectly. So that is here, conclusion, ultimate conclusion, one ultimate security. So when the three poisons are completely eradicated from us within our psyche, then the ultimate security is achieved. Ultimate peace, sometimes term is used, peace, Shiva. Peace is achieved or experienced. Security. From bondage of those three poisons and the actions led by those three poisons. Security. Live the ultimate spiritual life. And again, the ultimate, the consummation. What three? The aggregate of virtues, behavior of beyond training. This refers to ethics, behavior. Aggregate of virtues, behavior. Aggregate, this word has a very, important meaning, the meaning of aggregate. The ethics, living ethical and living ethically, living our life ethically, virtuously or ethically. It's not just one thing. It's not just two things. It is, from many different things come together. That's what aggregates, pungpo in Tibetan, pungpo, come together. Then the ethic, living, ethically, living ethical life will occur. It is not living having ethical life is not some kind of, independent or some kind of, it is from many different things come together, put together. As, the Nyeje Dombe Tsurin. So quite often, and the ethics are, list into three categories. The first one is very much for the beginner, for the initial trainers. That is, really pay attention and to learn to refrain from harmful actions. Nyeju is harmful behavior or harmful activity. Nyeba is literally means destructive. Ju is behavior, destructive behavior. Domba is restrain. That is out of the three, that's the first one. And here, very we talk a lot. So one of the main tools, important tools here is mindfulness. Be mindful how we are, actions of our body, actions of our speech, and actions of our mind. So that is really, the first training. That's why, those list of 10, to avoid 10 non-virtues. 3 with the body, 4 4 with the speech, and 3 with the mind. In the very, very early stage, when we talk about ethics, practicing ethics, we talk about that. That's what simply to say, learn to refrain or to restrain from the non-virtues, activities of action. That is the second ethics. So then the next is to really learn to bring virtues. Gyawa is a virtue. Ju is the virtues behavior. Duba is to collect. Collect in the sense to learn how to bring virtues in one's own life. These two are not some kind of, the first one and second one is not some kind of exclusive to each other. If we do the one, it may happen. But in terms of the mentally, psychologically training, that kind of sequence is explained. Then the third one is Semjen Tenjiki Tsurim. Third ethic, is Semjen Tencheba. Semjen is living beings. Tencheba is serving, ethics of serving the other living beings. And those are the three different, ethical training that we, learn. And this is what here, the previous, those results that Buddha list, best among the humans, reach ultimate conclusion, found ultimate security from bondage, lived the ultimate spiritual life, that kind of result, that kind of will we will experience if we train those three. The first one we talk about today, the aggregates of virtues, behavior of one beyond training. So beyond training, in the sense, once we train, live our lives ethically in those three, I've just, those three stages of training, then eventually they become very much part of our way of living, very much part of us, very spontaneous, very natural. That is what here, the meaning of one beyond training. Beyond training. When these three which listed here, they become very much part of our life, then those previous results are inevitable. We will experience. Nobody can stop. Nobody can stop. So it is very, very useful to look at these beautiful sutras. Okay, so today our time is nearly up, and I'm going to leave it here. And next Sunday, I'm going to continue reading this sutra that we started. And if I have time, we will briefly touch on the other sutras. Oh yeah, so we will say the 21 Tara prayers and then some dedication. Om Je Ma Pama Dhamma Cha Se Chanze Dhamma Ma Pa Jene Geje Lo Dang Jeden Songgon Chuji Che Kasar Jiwa Neni Chanze Dongge Dawa Kawa Jene Zigbe Shara Kama Dongda Soba Rabdo Chewe Ramba Chanze Seme Chuni Peme Chame Nambara Jimba Zundu Gado She Saba Samdin Juni Chanze Teshin Shebe Zo Kaya Nambara Jawa Je Malu Paro Jimba To Yawe Seji Shindu Den Chanze Doda Rahung Dodan Choda Naka Jiden Dombo Shabdin Leba Meba Guba Chanze Diajin Mela Nona Nazo Wanju Che Jombo Rana Tisan Nijin Soji Dine Chanze Deje Chadang Pe Paro Chogo Rabdo Egon Yinjang Shabdin Meba Chogo Shindo Chanze Dure Jiba Chen Duje Pao Nambara Chuji Shenlin Chuanyin Zhao Tangje Malu Se Chanze Gunjo Sumzen Cha Seme Toga Nambara Je Malu Choji Kolo Je Rangi Weji Song Che Chanze Rado Gawa Je Ujin Weji Chengwa Sheba Rabshi Dudara Dudan Jingden Wangdu Se Chanze Sashi Jongwe So Tamje Guba Nuban Chonye Yewa Yige Hongba Tamje Nambara Chanze Dawe Dombo Yamba Tamje Shindo Bara Lebe Jene Waban Tabara Shindo Ravase Chanze Gebe Taman Barwe Tingwe Wine Yejan Yugum Gune Po Taye Pumne Nambara Jo Chanze Saji Wala Cha Teji Nujin Shati Dong Chonye Chenze Yige Ho Remba Dumbo Namni De Chanze Dema Gema She Yang Deshi Juni, Soa Wanda Yanda, Iwa Chimbo Jomba, Changze Gune Goravaka, Jaye Lune, Number Game, Ige Jebe Ngani, Iwa Hole, Romani, Changze Duri Shamni, Honge Nambe, Saben, Ramenda Radang, Chicken Summa, Yawan, Changze Lai Soyin, Rita Tajin Chana, Para Niju Pedi, Dena Malu Pani, Changze Lai Sonam, Pada Miam Chi, Gune Goja Gawachi, Zeda Melon Nebase, Changze Nima Dawaji, Chini Bola Robse, Para Niju Dudala, Shindo Tabe Remese, Changze Tini Sumnam, Shive Dudaya Dade, Dena Rona Nijin So, Chomba Duri Rapjoni, Zare Mati Dubati, Changze Wani Juza. Yawa Di Diwo, Sanama Yishe Toto, Sanama Yishe Lejong, Tamba Kuni Toba, Chanjo Semjo Rinpo, Maje Panama Jeju, Jeba Nyamba Meba, Kone Kondo Pewara So Kare Rave Kone Chimbamande Penda Dewa Malu Jere Sewa Tenzin Dato Shabe Sede Pado Enjoro Je. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Very, very much.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Very much, Geshe.
Thank you.
Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe.